It all started with the attacks of 9/11 and the whole process that document wanted to happen started to unfold as a result of those attacks. And this guy, General Wesley Clark, he was a NATO Supreme Allied Commander. He wasn't, he's not the nicest man ever to walk the earth either, some of the things he's done. But he was interviewed on a television program, alternative television program on the internet. I think it was 2007. And he said that days after 9/11, he went to the Pentagon, he met Rumsfeld and Wolfowitz, and then he met a general on the Joint Chiefs of Staff that he knew, that was supposed to run the Pentagon, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And this general, he said, told him that they were going to invade Iraq. So he's going, what are we going to invade Iraq for? Were they involved in 9/11? Well, we don't think so. Well, why are you going to invade Iraq? Well, he didn't really know. And probably he didn't because of compartmentalization. So anyway, he goes away and he says he comes back a few weeks later, by which time America is in Afghanistan. And he met the same general at the Pentagon. And he said, why haven't we invaded Iraq? I thought we were going to invade Iraq. And the general said to him, it's worse than that, sir. He said, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I've just had this up from upstairs, Rumsfeld's office. We're going to invade 7 countries in 5 years. And he named them: Iraq, Libya, Syria, Iran, Lebanon, North Korea, etc., that were on that list. Not North Korea, but that was on the list as well. And so he said on this program, which you can see on the internet, that the Project for the New American Century had instigated a coup on America, and they wanted us to destabilize the Middle East, turn it upside down, make it under our control. And that is what has been unfolding ever since, hidden by apparent randomness of war. And let's go back now to Brzezinski's map of Eurasia and all the countries that have since been invaded or demonized, being prepared for invasion, are all in this area of the world. No accident. 9/11 was a problem, reaction, solution to justify what has happened since. And the official story of 9/11 is a joke. Now we come to Operation Northwoods. This was in the 1960s when a guy called Lyman L. Lemnitzer was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon. Note, this is 1962. What I'm about to tell you was being planned. This guy, James Bamford, was a former investigative producer with ABC, and he wrote a book called Body of Secrets about the NSA, the National Security Agency in America. And as part of this, he featured something called Operation Northwoods, which came out of the official American archive. This is not conspiracy theory. This is from the official documents. And this is what was planned to happen in the 1960s with Lemnitzer. Codenamed Operation Northwoods, the plan, which had the written approval of the chairman and every member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, called for innocent people to be shot on American streets, for boats carrying refugees fleeing Cuba to be sunk on the high seas, for a wave of violent terrorism to be launched in Washington, D.C., Miami, and elsewhere. People would be framed for bombings they did not commit. Planes would be hijacked. Using phony evidence, all of it would be blamed on Castro, thus giving Lemnitzer and his cabal the excuse, as well as the public and international backing they needed to launch their war. Exactly the techniques that have been used in more recent times. Now, I've been saying for years, others have too, that the planes that left the airport on 9/11, the airports, were not the planes that hit the buildings. And I've been saying, as others have too, that the planes that hit the buildings were controlled from the ground. They were what we now call drones. And, oh God, can they do that? What about the technology? Well, hold on. Let's look at the technology of 1962, when exactly that was planned in Operation Northwoods, as confirmed by official American documents. This is from Operation Northwoods. An aircraft at Elgin Air Force Base would be painted and numbered as an exact duplicate for a civil registered aircraft belonging to a CIA proprietary organization in the Miami area. At a designated time, the duplicate would be substituted for the actual civil aircraft, exactly what happened on 9/11, and would be loaded with the selected passengers, all boarded under carefully prepared aliases. Note how few, ridiculously few passengers there were on those planes, given the time that they left, when there would have been, should have been many more. The actual registered aircraft, Operation Northwoods goes on, would be converted to a drone. Takeoff times of the drone aircraft and the actual aircraft will be scheduled to allow a rendezvous south of Florida. From the rendezvous point, the passenger-carrying aircraft will descend to minimum altitude and go direct into an auxiliary field at Elgin Air Force Base, where arrangements will have been made to evacuate the passengers and return the aircraft to its original status. The drone aircraft, meanwhile, will continue to fly the filed flight plan. When over Cuba, the drone will be transmitting on the international distress frequency a Mayday message stating he is under attack by Cuban MiG aircraft. The transmission will be interrupted by destruction of the aircraft, which will be triggered by radio signal. This will allow the International Civil Aviation Organization radio stations in the Western Hemisphere to tell the US what has happened to the aircraft instead of the US trying to sell the incident. And that was planned for 1962. Kennedy put a stop to it, it seems. And this is why you have a whole organization of airline pilots and aircraft pilots that have come together to say that the story of who flew those planes and how is a nonsense, an impossibility. This is why architects and engineers, some of them at the top of their profession, have got together in the same way and said the explanation of how the buildings came down is a nonsense and impossible. Why? Because it's a lie. The whole thing's a lie. This is Mohammed Atta, the so-called lead hijacker. According to his American white girlfriend, you can see her interview on the internet, his favorite food was pork. Yes, ooh, God, he's extreme Muslim, he is, ooh, ah. That he was often drunk and was constantly, basically, taking cocaine. She also said, because they lived in an apartment in Venice, where the Venice airport is in Florida, where they're supposed to have learned how to fly wide-bodied jets by flying one-engine Cessnas. That makes bloody sense, doesn't it? And she said that when they ran out of cocaine, he would go over to Venice airport and come back with an armful, which explains perfectly other areas of research, which is that Venice airport was a conduit, maybe still is, but certainly was then, for CIA drug operations coming out of South America and onto the streets of America through Venice airport. Attar was one of the people working for the CIA on that drug-running operation. That's why he could go over and get the armful of cocaine. And because he was working for the CIA, he could be put in the wrong place at the wrong time for him while having no idea what the hell was going on. That's why his bag, of all bags in all the world, didn't get on the plane so they could say, oh, look, flight manual, Quran, suicide note. Oh, they'll give them anything. They'll believe anything. And this is Aaron Russo, an award-winning film producer. He worked on Trading Places with Eddie Murphy. And before he died of cancer, he talked about a meeting he had with this guy, Nick Rockefeller, who was trying to recruit him into one of those organizations, one of those cusp organizations I mentioned earlier, the Council on Foreign Relations. And this was 1 year before 9/11. And this is what Russo said Rockefeller told him. There would be an event that would lead to the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, to take over the oil fields and establish a base in the Middle East. Russo would see soldiers looking in caves in Afghanistan and Pakistan for Osama bin Laden. There would be an endless war on terror where there's no real enemy. The whole thing would be a giant hoax. The people have to be ruled, he said, and the population reduced by at least half. And he talked of the plan for microchipping the serfs. And you always have a compliant, unquestioning, pathetic excuse for a mainstream media who will always play their part in demonizing the next target, preparing for invasion and removal.